Let's jump right into this explainer and unpack the foundational blueprint of industrial workspaces in India. Chapter 1 of the Factories Act 1948. If you really want to understand how labor, machinery, and management are legally tied together, you absolutely have to start right here. This single chapter sets the stage for everything else, laying out the absolute ground rules for what a workplace even is.
To make sense of this rather dense legal text, we're going to break it down into 5 key parts: the launchpad and timeline, the DNA of people and time, defining processes and factories, time divisions and emergencies, and finally, gatekeeping, approvals and notices.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the launchpad and timeline.
So how did this massive piece of legislation actually get off the ground? Well, right after India's independence, there was a huge need to consolidate all the scattered, messy labor laws. The act was officially enacted on September 23, 1948. After a few months of intense prep, it officially went live across the country on April 1, 1949. This was a monumental, game-changing shift in formalizing worker protections.
Moving right along to Section 2, the DNA, people, and time.
This section is literally the DNA of the law. It sets up the specific vocabulary used everywhere else in the Act. And let me tell you, the law leaves absolutely zero room for guesswork here, especially when categorizing human beings. An adult is strictly someone who has completed their 18th year, an adolescent has finished their 15th year but not their 18th, and a child, anyone who hasn't yet completed their 15th year. You'll also hear the term young person tossed around, which is just a legal umbrella covering both children and adolescents.
The Act also completely locks down how time is tracked. To prevent employers from blurring the lines about who worked when, it defines operational time blocks. When you have different sets of workers doing the exact same kind of work at different times of the day, that set of people is legally called a group or relay. And the actual block of time they spend working, that is defined as a shift.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. The Act brilliantly separates human sweat from mechanical effort. Look at how they define power. It has to be electrical or mechanically transmitted energy, and the law explicitly says the power excludes anything generated by humans or animals. The engine making that energy is the prime mover, the belts and shafts moving it are the transmission machinery, and machinery is just a collective term for the whole shebang. Hold on to that strict definition of power because it's going to become incredibly important in just a second.
Let's dive into Section 3, defining processes and factories.
What actually triggers all these rules in the first place? Well, Section 2K defines a manufacturing process, and it casts a wildly wide net. It catches pretty much any physical alteration of an object, whether you're making, repairing, washing, packing, or even demolishing an article so it can be sold, used, or disposed of. The law views that as a manufacturing process.
Honestly, you'd probably be surprised by what gets caught in this net. Legally, running a cold storage facility, pumping sewage, just packing items into boxes, or even breaking down a massive ship into scrap metal. All of those count. It is way more than just your classic smokestacks and assembly lines.
And the definition of a worker under Section 2L is just as broad. Direct hires, yes. Agency temps or contractors, yes. It doesn't even matter if they aren't working for actual wages. It doesn't even matter if the principal boss knows they're in the building. If they are doing work related to that manufacturing process, boom, they are a worker. The only absolute exclusion here is for members of the armed forces.
All right, now for the magic numbers. What actually transforms a building into a factory under Section 2M? It all boils down to 2 numerical thresholds combined with that strict definition of power we just talked about. If your manufacturing process uses power, like electricity, and you had exactly 10 or more workers on any single day in the last 12 months, you are officially a factory. If you don't use power, that threshold bumps up to 20 workers. Just hit those numbers once in a year and the entire act applies to you.
But there are some strict exceptions. Even if you hit those worker numbers, places like mines, mobile military units, railway running sheds, and restaurants are explicitly left out, usually because they fall under other specific laws. Also, simply having a giant room full of computers, an electronic data processing unit, doesn't magically turn your office into a factory, unless actual manufacturing is happening right there.
So we have the premises, the workers, and the machines. But when things go wrong or an accident happens, who does the law actually point the finger at?
Enter Section 2N, the Occupier. This is the ultimate gatekeeper, the person with total control over the factory's affairs. And to absolutely stop people from hiding behind complicated corporate veils, the Act legally names names.
If it's a firm, an individual partner is on the hook. In a corporate company, any one of the directors. And in a government-run factory, the specifically appointed manager is held legally responsible. You cannot just pass the buck.
Which brings us to Section 4, Time, Divisions, and Emergencies.
Looking at the operational rules, Section 3 is super straightforward but totally essential. The whole framework is synced up to Indian Standard Time. This standardizes operations across the entire country, though a state government can create special local time rules for specific areas if they absolutely have to. Building on administrative flexibility, Section 4 gives the state government this incredible power to essentially redraw the legal boundaries of a factory. They can take one massive factory and legally declare its different departments as entirely separate factories. Or they can take multiple separate ones and merge them into a single unit. But there's a catch. The government can't just do this in a vacuum. They have to give the occupier a fair chance to be heard first.
Then there is Section 5, which handles the extreme what-ifs. During a grave national emergency, think war or a severe internal disturbance, the state government can actually exempt factories from these rules for up to 3 months at a time. But here is the critical part. Even in the absolute worst-case national crisis, the ban on child labor under Section 67 remains completely off the table. It is non-negotiable and can never be exempted.
All right, final section, gatekeeping, approvals and notices.
When it comes to taking action before a single machine is turned on or a single worker clocks in, the occupier has a strict, mandatory 3-step checklist under Section 6. First, you have to submit comprehensive factory plans. Second, you must get prior written permission from the chief inspector or state government just to use the site and start building. And third, you have to officially register and license the facility, which means paying the required fees.
But what happens if the government bureaucracy is just dragging its feet? Well, there's actually a brilliant legal failsafe here called the Deemed Approval Rule. If you mail your site application and plans via registered post and the government just goes radio silent for 3 months, guess what? You are automatically approved to proceed. The permission is legally considered granted.
And the very last hurdle is Section 7. Exactly 15 days before you start using the premises as a factory, you have to formally declare your intentions by sending a huge written notice to the chief inspector. Think of it as a checklist of accountability. You must declare the factory's name, the occupier and owner details, the exact nature of the manufacturing process, the total installed horsepower, the name of your manager, and how many workers you expect to employ.
This preliminary chapter really does act as the ultimate blueprint, legally locking down exactly who is responsible for who, what, and when. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. Knowing just how incredibly wide the legal net of manufacturing, workers, and power actually is, could your modern workplace technically trigger these 1948 factory laws? It's a pretty fascinating thought. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the blueprints around you.